Hello, everybody. So today I want to talk about KULR. KULR is a Bitcoin Treasury company that was very popular at the turn of 2025 and kind of fell into despair as far as the stock price goes. It's actually down 75% from the peak. Yet, although KULR is now fairly unnoticed by the market, it's an active treasury company with an underlying business that actually has value. And I'm going to try to show that in this video. But let's start with, of course, why we're interested in KULR. We're interested in KULR because of the Bitcoin Treasury company. At least that's why I'm interested in KULR. But it has a diverse shareholder base. And many shareholders are interested in KULR because of the space business, the space biz. And you can see, yesterday they announced expanding the Bitcoin. They expanded their Bitcoin by about 10%. They grew the Bitcoin back by about 10%. They achieved a Bitcoin yield of 220% by using excess cash, of course, but especially using the ATM, the at-the-market equity program, to fund acquisitions. And this is where it gets good because KULR has an amazing price to NAV, right? Market cap or Bitcoin NAV is a 4.06. So they're essentially earning a Bitcoin yield right now. They're not saying, oh, we'll be doing a Bitcoin yield, we'll be buying Bitcoin, but they don't do it, like a GameStop, for example, which hasn't done it yet. But when they tap their ATM, they sell $1 of funds, of dilution, $1 of dilution for $4.06 of funds, which is not going to go towards dilution, which is just going to go straight towards buying Bitcoin. This is a MNAV dream, as MicroStrategy's MNAV sits at a 1.8. This stock has an outstanding MNAV of a 4, and the rate of growth could be stunning. We could still see BTC yield in the hundreds of percent, at least I would say for a year or two going forward, just because the bag is so small right now at only 800 Bitcoin, only almost $90 million worth of Bitcoin. The stock is up 225% over the past 52 weeks, and it's uncanny because their yield is about 220% over that same period, which is quite interesting. So let's talk about this stock, and let's first describe the margin of safety. What I'm going to describe the margin of safety, which is the core business. So we're not going to talk about the core business. And the core business is, of course, what sustain this seemingly high MNAV for a company like that, which I think is deserved given the BTC yield that they've earned. But I think much of that MNAV has to do with the underlying business. So what is the underlying business? The underlying business has an outlook, a revenue growth outlook of plus 100%. How do we know that? At Q4 of 2024, during the call, they guided up 100% from 10.7 million, and they are still on track. You can see this was a question from the Q1 earnings call where someone asked, do you think you're also going to grow at 100%? Do you think you're still going to grow at 100%? And this is now Q1, and so they have more of a look back now that they have a quarter into 2025. And what did they say? They said, yes, we still expect to grow at 100% for 2025. So the full year 2025 outlook is 21.4 million from 10.7 million. And so this is where we get into the valuation. So let's talk about a Bitcoin adjusted enterprise value. So the market cap is 449 million. They have 24 million in cash, $1 million in debt, and 88 million in Bitcoin, which gives them and BTC adjusted a Bitcoin adjusted enterprise value of 238 million. BTC adjusted. And the BTC adjusted enterprise value divided by forward sales is, so 238 divided by 21, that's 11 times forward sales. It's expensive, but it's not through the roof compared to pure play BTC treasury companies, which for many of them don't even have revenue to speak of. So that's point number one. And then point number two, this is a very hot sector. And so the question is, in the space of robots and space and batteries, is an 11% forward sales warranted? So let's first see what they do. What do? They do space batteries. That's what they specialize in. They pride themselves of having batteries in orbit, having batteries in space, and even having batteries on Mars. Some of their batteries are on Mars. This is a company that has been working with NASA for a long time. They also have, and this is equal size, the space battery business and the service business, by the way, way, is about equal size for them. But the product business, the battery business, is growing very fast. The services for NASA business is a more established business that's not really growing too much. They provide services for NASA. One of the services they provide, for example, is analyzing the cells, the batteries that go into space system and into rockets to make sure they don't explode. And they have this whole battery inspection that they do, and then they charge NASA for the battery inspection, and they provide the data for NASA. So high margin business, right? Services for NASA, space batteries, and they just launch robotics, being the and I think very exclusive, pretty sure about that, being the main, or at least the first importer of a successful exoskeleton in Germany, which is called the Apogee Ultra, which is a German exoskeleton that has had some success in Germany, that they are bringing to the US and commercializing to the US. And of course, why would they be interested in this product? Well, it's quite simple. It's got a battery pack in the back, and so they hope to be providing the battery pack and making money that way through the distribution. And they actually approached this company as this company was looking for good batteries. They used to be suppliers for this company in Germany. So again, maybe it's a long shot, maybe it's not, I don't know, but there's a lot of business here with construction workers, with nurses. There's a lot of applications for this, and so that's part of a robotics business, but it's pre-robotics, if that makes some sense. It's like pre-bot, pre-Optimus bot, pre-embodied AI. You're going to have probably human-enhanced AI, and these machines, of course, use AI when they help you lift things and lift heavy things around, etc. They move with you when you walk with them. It kind of looks like an Iron Man, as the CEO never fails to mention in his podcasts. The CEO is kind of a cool guy, by the way. I've listened to about 2 hours of podcast work with him. Smart cookie, smart guy, knows what he's talking about, been in business for a long time, very sharp. So I like that. If you like to invest in leaders, which, I really don't care about leaders on this channel, but if you like leaders, if you like to have a good leader, the CEO gets my check. I think the CEO is a pretty darn good leader, at least he's a smart guy. Anyways, moving on, KULR peers. So how do I know if it's expensive? How do I know if 11 times forward sales is expensive? These companies are so new that their forward growth numbers are all over the place, and I don't really have an outlook for them. So take that with a grain of salt. I'm just going to use the realized price to sales to judge them. So who's KULR's peer? It's very, very tough to find KULR's peer. I'm not going to use embodied AI or robotics as their peer because that would be so unfair. But I think their peer is mostly in the battery business. High performance batteries. They just happen to do space batteries, but high performance batteries. So we have a few. We have Amprius. Amprius is a company that does high performance lithium ion batteries for drones. They have groundbreaking solutions for all sorts of industries, and they're all about their silicon anode. Anyways, a high-end US maker of batteries, Amprius, for very high-end applications. Price sales of 8. So again, not looking too bad with an 11 here for KULR. Keep in mind that 1/4 of that forward sales were already done. So that's an 8. All right, moving on to another company, SES, which is again in the battery business. This time, SES is making batteries for humanoid robots. That's the Li Metal. It's and you can see the application of them because they're getting into the humanoid business. They realize there's going to be a lot of demand for batteries, so they're getting into that business with their battery. Here's a company who has a product who's making batteries for humanoids. That's trading at a price sales of 15. And then my unfazed people are going to be mad for me daring to compare Enovix to KULR, but Enovix price to sell is through the stratosphere. And I'm only using Enovix to tell you what, these stocks can fly. These stocks get loved by the market because you're mixing AI, you're mixing super high growth, you're mixing clean energy, you're mixing battery. There's a lot of room for narrative to exist around a stock like KULR, and Enovix is the evidence of that. But SES right here is not that cheap either. So again, I think the valuation of this company is more than warranted, given that they are kind of a big deal in space batteries. So I think it's a warranted valuation, but of course, none of these companies have Bitcoins. The KULR company has Bitcoin, and it has a big fast-growing Bitcoin stack. So I'm really liking this business. I see a lot of intrinsic value in the company over than Bitcoin. And when you add Bitcoin on top of that, it's quite great. And this allows them, by the way, to fundraise with the ATM. The fact that there's a lot of intrinsic value based in the space battery business, the space batteries business is well valued by the market. That fact allows them to then raise funds via the ATM and turn those funds into Bitcoin. And these companies, like I said, they have similar enterprise values, but without Bitcoin. This one has a similar enterprise value to a lot of the peers, but it has Bitcoin on the balance sheet. And furthermore, they're predicting revenue growth in the outlook of plus 100% this year, and they are they're optimized for gross margin. Now, EBITDA is a mess. They have a facility they're closing. They have a lot of R&D, a lot of investment. So EBITDA is kind of a mess. These companies, anyways, are too early to be judged by EBITDA. One could even make the case that these companies are too early to be judged via gross margin. But as far as KULR is concerned, it has a 45% gross margin, which means that they're getting optimized for gross margin. And what are we getting? We're getting a stock 75% down from the announcement hype of when they did their strategy. And this was the investor presentation from 2 weeks ago now that they announced. First slide in the shareholders deck. First slide in the shareholders deck for KULR is the Bitcoin slide. That is the first slide. The CEO has been orange-pilled. The BTC Treasury company is the first slide in that company. So that means that they are quite excited about it, and they're excited to be a BTC Treasury company. And so, as you can guess, I like it a lot. And so what am I going to do? Because how do I want exposure? I'm kind of looking for a next Meta Planet now, because poor Meta Planet is in the stratosphere. By the time you see this video, I may have sold it. I don't know when I'll release this video to the main channel. This video is going to be a Patreon exclusive first. But anyways, I need a replacement. So what's the replacement? Well, KULR could be that replacement. I want to buy the stock outright for KULR, but there's no point in me buying the stock outright because my broker gives me 100% maintenance ratio, so you can't borrow against it. So why would I buy the stock outright when the broker is being unfair to KULR? I mean, that's just my view. So I don't want to buy the stock outright. So I'm going to buy an option. Since I can't get margin against it, since it doesn't help my margin account, I might as well do options. And so the options that would be interesting, because when I look at this stock, I want to own it. And so I would be looking at the 50-cent strike options. The 50-cent strike options where you pay $80 for one contract, so $80 for controlling 100 shares. And this is like the crazy part. Very tiny options market, but if you look at the trading part, to break even on the trade, the stock actually needs to go down 3%. So the option is actually cheaper than the stock right now. Of course, we're in after hours, so it's fairly imperfect. So that's the way I want to enter this trade. Just in the money, and there's only a choice of two, right? But in the money calls, and October 17 is fine for me because I think we're going to have a Bitcoin summer. And so then I would just buy them, of course, come October 17. And in the meantime, the volatility, the implied vol on this stock is actually quite nice. It's like 80% implied vol. In the meantime, you can sell deep out of money calls against your owned calls here. If you buy the calls, you can sell the calls against it. So you can earn a little income too. So I like this stock. I like this setup. I like the risk reward very much. And I will be entering this trade. Stay tuned on Patreon for my announcement. And this is a Patreon exclusive video that I'll release to the main channel. I don't know when. Anyways, this was not investment advice, not financial advice. This is only entertainment. Hoping you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me on X. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful, wonderful day.